It's match day here at the Heritage Centre, and I'm giving you a little look behind the scenes. Obviously you can see our set there on your right hand side. You can see how busy it is in here. This is basically the new St Luke's, where things were, how things were. We've moved it on. We're trying to bring the atmosphere of Goodison with us. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Paul McParlan, who is the Heritage Society's representative on the Fan Advisory Board. He's going to give us have a chat with us all about his memories of the 60s, particularly the World Cup, which was fantastic, and then a jump forward to the 80s, where the topic of his book is the Forgotten Champions, the last title-winning team of Goodison Park in 1987. Really good chat. I always love chatting to Paul. It's a long form, in-depth, always fascinating. Every story he's got, you could just listen to him for hours. So I really hope you enjoy the story today. As I say, match day, Tottenham Hotspur are the opponents. And I want to leave you with a little quiz question. See if you can list by the end of the show all of the Premier League players who have played for both Everton and Tottenham. Hopefully I've got an accurate list, which I'll give you at the end. I do ask Paul about it as well, so we'll give you some cheats right at the end of the show. Paul Jago behind me there with the Everton, the retro shirts. You can come in here and you can see every shirt that Everton have ever worn. You can buy a copy, a replica of those as well. Ruleteros are just next to me. Fan Advisory Board are in. We've got the programme stalls that go all the way to the back of the room, where you'll find Tom on the toffee art stall, and Richie and Reg as well, who we owe a lot to here at the Heritage Society. So enjoy the show, guys, and hopefully we'll see you here in the Heritage Centre, upstairs at the BlueHouse Beer Hall, opposite the Hill Dickinson Stadium, very soon.
Marching down the Goodison Road.
One of Britain's greatest footballers.
Sharp, what a fantastic goal! And the Evertonians have gone berserk. Oh, yes, he's got it!
One Evertonian is worth 20 Liverpudlians.
Oh, it's great stuff by Everton.
This is football heritage.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Everton Heritage Show, brought to you by members of the Everton FC Heritage Society. And braving the rain today, joining me on match day, is historian and author and the Heritage Society representative for the Fan Advisory Board, Mr. Paul McParlan. So thanks very much for being with us today, mate.
Hi Lewis, thanks for having me on the show. Been looking forward to being a part of this project. I've loved the previous videos you've done with your previous guests, so really hoping I can live up to the standards set by your previous occupants of this chair.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words, mate. Cheers. I've got your book behind you, The Forgotten Champions of '87. I'll get onto that a little bit later.
That's fine.
I want to go all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
Your first game, 1960s.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, first game. It's the autumn 1962. I haven't been to a football match in my life. My dad's getting ready to go and watch Everton play away at Blackburn Rovers. My younger brother Dean is screaming, shouting the house down. He's about 2 years old at the time. My mum's going bananas. And as my dad gets ready to go to the house, he says, "Where do you think you're going?" "I'm going to watch Everton." "You're not leaving me here with two screaming kids all day. What do you think you're doing?" And so my dad had this brilliant idea. "Well, I'll tell you what, if I take Paul off your hands, can I go to the game?" "Okay, yeah." So I was absolutely delighted, because my first football game, I wasn't expecting it, and we jumped the train from Oral Park Station to Blackburn direct, because in those days you could get trains to Liverpool to almost anywhere. And when we got on the train at Oral Park, it was the old style rail compartment seating with two blocks of seats facing each other, and we went in the compartment, and as was the trend at the time, everyone wore suits for football in those days. My dad had a suit on, and I sat in the compartment with a couple of lads in the 20s who all were wearing suits, looking really smart. And then one of them pulled this case down from the top, opened it, and he had a whole collection of programmes in there. So he gave me one or two to start reading, and I was just engrossed for the rest of the journey. I was completely silent, devouring these programmes, and it's kind of gave me a lifelong love of programme collecting that kind of stayed with me to this day. So when we got to Blackburn, it was absolutely freezing. It was a well-renowned cold, bitter winter, 62-63. We trudged to the stadium, and for the 7-year-olds, I was looking at, you could see the floodlights in the distance, you see all the fans wearing the colours. I mean, rattles and rosettes were a big thing in those days as well. Yeah. And I was looking forward to getting to the game. First pub we walked past, Dad goes, right, you sit outside the airport, I'm going to meet a few friends for a few drinks. So I'm sat outside in the freezing cold. About 5 minutes later, my dad comes out, bottle of lemonade, bag of cheese and onion crisps. A few other lads joined us as well. And that was kind of my pre-match ritual until I was a teenager. Well, I was just stuck outside the pub, drinking lemonade, eating crisps, and meeting loads of other young Everton fans as well.
What more do you need?
Well, exactly. I mean, life doesn't get much better than that, does it, Lewis? And then at about 5 to 3, he came out the pub. He'd bought his 2 stand seats, which really helped. And it was blizzard conditions. The referee had an orange ball for the game. Blackburn scored first. We came back to go 2-1 ahead. I think Brian Harris got one of the goals, and then Dennis Stevens got a goal. I think Dennis Stevens is the cousin of Duncan Edwards as well. I'm not sure about that.
This is 62?
This is 62, 63, yeah. So then, because it's our title-winning season as well, and we were top of the table before the game. And Blackburn got back to 2 each with a centre-forward called Fred Pickering, guessing the goal. And then in the last minute, and this is so typical Everton, Blackburn got given a controversial penalty. Their winger, Brian Douglas, stepped up to take it, smacked it home. We got beat 3-2, and that was my introduction to life as an Everton supporter. Joy, heartbreak, all in 90 minutes.
There you go. You've got the quintessential Everton experience.
Absolutely. And then coming home, the train was absolutely packed. We had to sit in the guards van, and I was absolutely freezing. So the kindly guardsman gave me a cup of Oxo to drink from his flask. I've never ever tasted such a horrid drink in my life. I've never touched the stuff since, but fantastic day.
It stayed with you this whole time, yeah.
Well, probably the same with you, Lewis. Your first match always stays with you. The memories are there, no matter how old you get.
I'm going to be honest, I've struggled to remember mine, but in my defence, I was 2 years old. I feel like I've got a little bit of a...
I think you've got a defence there, but I'm sure some hypnotist could bring it out for you if you put yourself on the couches sometime.
There's photographs, I remember the pictures.
Well, that's all that you need. But your first football match always stays with you. And I did write an article about it as well, just to get it all clear in my own mind. But from that day onwards, I thought, this is great. And then, of course, it was the winter of 62-63. So Everton didn't play a game for 7 weeks between the start of December and the start of February. So I didn't get a chance to go to another game until the end of February.
Goodness me. And surprisingly, well, perhaps unsurprisingly, I couldn't find any footage of the 62 game. But I did get footage of another 1962 game against today's opponents, against Tottenham Hotspur. Typically, it was 0-0.
Yeah.
So the footage doesn't necessarily... there's not much to it, to be honest, but I do have some of the team sheets, at least. Do you remember any of the players in the game?
I mean, for Everton or for Tottenham?
Oh, well, either of them. I've got a clip from Saturday Sport, before the days of Match of the Day.
Is that David Cohen or Kenneth Wolstenholme?
Kenneth Wolstenholme, yes.
First, it's soccer and a visit to the packed terraces at White Hart Lane, where Spurs were at home to Everton. Over £400,000 worth of footballing talent was on view, and thousands of people were locked out of the ground long before the start of this eagerly awaited duel between the country's best attack and the country's best defence. Spurs versus Everton.
It's obviously a packed house here at White Hart Lane for this great match of the day between Spurs and Everton.
I mean, Bill Brown, Scottish goalkeeper, his nickname was Hovers, because Hovers was only brown bread in the 60s, so Tottenham fans called him Hovers, that was his nickname. Peter Baker, right back, Ron Henry, left back. Danny Blanchflower, superb footballer. The one who's credited with giving Alex Young the name, the Golden Vision.
Oh, really?
In a post-match comment one time. He says, well, that's Alex, isn't he? He's the Golden Vision.
Right.
Now, how true that is, there's conflicting sources about that, but that's what I've got. Morris Norman, your typical 60s centre-half, took no prisoners. Tony Marsh, he was kind of in and out the team. I think he's taking place of maybe possibly John White or somebody for that game. Ronnie Clayson, yeah, he was subbing the 67 Cup final against Chelsea. Dave Mackay would have played with Alex Younger Hart. Fantastic, fierce wing half who went on to win the league title as well.
He was a vicious player as well. He really was a hard man.
Really was. Hard but fair. You know, he wasn't one of these sly people who poked in the ribs when the ref was looking. If he crunched you, he crunched you. Also famous as well for breaking Jimmy Husband's leg in a tattle in a League Cup tie at Goodison Park in the late 60s, just after he signed for Derby. And I remember being at the game, you could hear the crunch. It was just like, possibly finished Husband's career. Yeah. Les Allen, who is the father of Clive Allen, I think, as well.
Is, yeah.
And obviously, Allen's a very famous football family. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Greaves, possibly the greatest goal scorer I've ever seen play football. Tremendous footballer, and for a certain generation, he's more known for his St. Greavesy appearances on ITV, which is always part of the pre-match routine in the ACs. Cliff Jones, who's 91, still alive, Welsh winger. A very, very, very good forward as well. So at the start of the 1960s, Tottenham were the glamour team. They won the double in 60-61. They won the cup again in 61-62. So it was kind of, if you beat Tottenham, you felt you had a chance of doing something.
They were a fantastic side, weren't they? And this particular game was actually first versus second. Everton top of the table, Tottenham right behind us, and then, as if you need any prompting at all, the Everton side that would have been the team in your first game.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as I said there, Brian Harris scored the goal in that Blackburn game as well. Dennis Stevens scored the second ever goal in that Blackburn game. Yeah, I mean, Billy Bingham, very, very talented winger who kind of lost his place in the second half of the season after we signed Alex Scott. Ray Veal, who'd often come in and fit on the left side of the wing there. Alex Young, I mean, those who were privileged enough to see him would know what a fantastic player he was. Roy Vernon, a kind of very underrated player. I know Rob Sawyer from the Heritage Society has done a fantastic book about Roy Vernon. If you ever get a chance to read it, I'd highly recommend that. Yeah, Brian LeBone, the last of the Corinthians. If AI was designing the archetypal Evertonian footballer, that would be Brian LeBone. Jimmy Gable, fantastic player, Scottish, fiery, always gave his best. Two fullbacks there. So you've got Ray Parker, Mick Megan, and then, I mean, Gordon West at the time, he's only about 20 years old. We signed him when he was 19. We're so used these days to goalkeepers being like in the mid-20s when they break through. I think we signed him as a 19-year-old from Blackpool. And what a fantastic goalkeeper he was. And it's always one of those perennial questions, what if moments, isn't it? If Gordon West had been chosen for the 1970 England World Cup squad and he pulled out, decided he didn't want to go. If he'd been the goalkeeper instead of Peter Benessi in that game against West Germany, who knows? Who knows?
And of course, Alec Young up front.
Indeed.
Sensational, isn't it? So, in those early days, thank you for that, by the way. That was brilliant. I feel like I'm just going to breeze by that. What a run through that was, like, superb, mate. In those days, you, particularly obviously at Goodison Park, you may have been watching the game in a particular way, caged.
Yes.
As Everton used to cage the children, unbelievably, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, football in the 60s was just a completely different era, a completely different experience. So, yeah, I'd say I hadn't been to an Everton game since that Blackburn away game, and I was boring all my friends at school about what a great football match it had been and all that type of thing as well. So, one of my friends at school was desperate to come to the game with me. So my dad said, yeah, I can take you, but you're going to have to go in the boys' pen because I can't afford to buy 2 tickets for you, because at that time, there were no concessionary prices for young people. So there were no family tickets, there was no family enclosure, there were no discounts for people under 14, 15. You either paid the full adult price, which, to be fair, in those days wasn't that expensive compared to today, or your alternative was the boys' pen. Now, I didn't really know what I was letting myself in for with the boys' pen. At the time, I'd have been 7, and I think in Liverpool society at that time, there was kind of a bit of a divide emerging. Like, my maternal grandparents were from Everton, and quite often I'd go back to see my grandparents there, and to me it just looked a really run down area, and kids were roaming the streets, you know, and I was terrified. I lived in one of the new estates to the north of Liverpool in a place called Litherlands, where we had a farm opposite the house. The new buildings were springing up everywhere. We had an inside toilet, but we weren't streetwise. We were like lambs to the slaughter.
If you've got an indoor toilet, mate, yeah.
Well, in the 60s, yeah, I mean, that was social climate. I even remember, I know this seems quite strange, but one or two of the of the lads on that estate spoke with a Lancashire accent rather than Liverpool accents. I mean, even though it was 6-7 miles outside city centre, there was still that thing. And people from Scotland Road would come to the pub in Litherland, which everyone knew as Tom Jones at the time, for their Saturday, Sunday nights out in the countryside. Right. So it was a different experience. So it didn't prepare me for the boys' pen. So me and my mates, it was a guy called Aaron O'Leary I was at English Masters Primary School with. We turned up for the game. My dad, as usual routine, we'd been dumped outside the pub for about an hour before the game. Yeah. Drank guzzled our lemonade, SL cheese and onion crisps, and then we got to the ground about 10 to 3 and walked through the gates. Now, we hadn't quite realised that section was full of half one. People have been queuing to get in at half one. Right. So we're looking.
When you say that section, you mean the pen itself?
To give you some context, the boys' pen was to the left-hand corner of the Gladys Street towards the Butlins Road ends. Yeah. So people would be queuing to get in there by half one because of the cheap prices and to make sure they weren't locked out. Because if that was your match day money and you didn't get in, then you couldn't see the game. Yeah. So we got in anyway, and I remember looking around thinking, the age limit here is 14. I'm surrounded by people smoking. There's guys with beards and moustaches, all looking about 6 foot tall. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? So I couldn't see a thing. We start pushing our way down to try and get a glimpse of the game. And then people start kicking us, spitting at us, pulling our hair, shoving us down the steps, and we are absolutely terrified. So then we kind of looked around for a bit of help and support, and we spotted a couple of girls. We thought, oh, great, there's some girls there, they'll help out. It's the worst mistake we could have made. They're like the witches from Macbeth. They just absolutely tore into us, kicked us, spat on us, and then while all this is going on, 2 of their boyfriends come over, relieve my pockets of all my sweets, all my pocket money. So we're penniless, we're sweetless, we can't see a thing. It's 3:05. I'm terrified. I look at Alan, he looks at me, we said, let's just go. So we come out, we go down, and we're sat outside Gladys Street at 3:05. Oh, bless you. But that was okay because there was so much going on outside the stage, and we saw people being hauled off into Black Mariahs, we saw people being arrested. A kindly police officer came and gave us a bag of crisp-trees. So it was quite interesting. And fortunately, the game was 0-0, so we didn't actually miss that much. And at the end of the match, met my dad, and he asked him what he thought of the game. He told him the story, and he goes, "Well, you can't tell your mum about this. You can't tell your mum about this. I tell you what, lads, I'll go buy some more crisps and lemonade," which is the answer to everything in those days. And we'll have it wasn't called a non-disclosure agreement in those days, but it was effectively the same outcome. But yeah, I mean, the boys' pen, I mean, it was an experience. One of the rites of passage in the boys' pen, there were kind of railings to stop you getting into Gladys Street. So the more intrepid supporters would try to climb over the railings and jump down into Gladys Street, urged on by the supporters, which each home game 10, 12 people doing that. So the club raised the spikes further so you couldn't do that. And then in the 60s there was a drink called Jubilee, which is like an orange drink in a car.
I remember you've written a programme article about this, haven't you? I remember the Jubilees,
And what the kids used to do was, after they finished the Jubilee, they fill it up with water. There was a tap at the back of the boys' pen. They'd fill it up with water, and then they'd launch these projectiles from the boys' pen into the garden. And you could see them flying past, hitting people on the back. Because fans were turning around really annoyed, but they couldn't do anything because
you're in a cage.
There's nothing they could do. So the outcome of that was the club actually fully caged in that section.
Put a roof on it.
Yeah, put a complete. It wasn't so much a roof as like a canopy sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
But it just meant you couldn't throw anything. But I mean, how many health and safety laws that contravened? I have absolutely no idea.
The second half is anything like as good as the first. Those young Everton supporters in their protected enclosure will have something to talk about tonight.
So it was just an awful place and got worse each season. And I think the club would happily have kept the boys' pen going, except I think it was the start of the 77-78 season. There was a new Football Safety Act came into place, which required you to have a certain number of exits for each section of the ground. Everton didn't have enough safety exits in the Gladys Street end, which meant they were going to have to reduce the capacity to 38,000 at a time when 50,000 gates were quite commonplace. And the solution was, if you got rid of the boys' pen, it created another exit. So just by doing that, that was the end of the boys' pen. So for those who have no idea what the boys' pen is, I'm sorry for going on about something you probably got no recollection of, but for those who do remember it, and if you live to tell the tale like me, then it's an experience that will it just stays in your DNA for the rest of your life.
It's the almost the beginning of the character building nature of being an Evertonian, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a rite of passage. If you could say, I survived the boys' pen, then you really had a bit of kudos when you went back into school in the morning. But
even if people, viewers don't remember it, I'm too young to know, but it's great to hear the stories. And it's just, when you say to people, "Oh yeah, we used to cage the kids,"
I know,
it's bizarre, isn't it?
And it's just a relic of different ages, isn't it? Because I think. Because clubs are so family orientated these days, they're desperate to get the younger supporters in, with concessionary pricing and things like that. That just didn't exist in the 60s and 70s. They just weren't interested in younger supporters. I think mainly because they just assumed if your dad went to the game, you'd then go to the game eventually anyway. So they weren't too concerned about cultivating that fan base.
It's brilliant. A fascinating story. I love hearing about those days before my time. To keep it slightly chronological, there was one little fact that I read the other day, one of El Bretland's statistics. In terms of on this day, so it's the 26th of October, and back in 1963, we played Tottenham on this day back then as well, and we beat them 1-0. Derek Temple with the goal. So I just thought that was a nice little coincidence on this day, So chronologically, we move forward a few years, and there was quite a big occasion to kick off at Goodison Park. The biggest occasion of all, you could argue. The World Cup comes to England in 1966. And you were lucky enough to attend a few of the games?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to attend all of them, Lewis. I think Goodison Park, we were lucky because it was chosen as the venue over Anfield because we had more seating capacity, we had better media facilities, and at the time, arguably, and I think Ken Rodgers has said this in a previous discussion, it was the best league stadium in the country, so it was a no-brainer that Everton would have been picked to host the World Cup. So yeah, I always kind of remember around at my granddad's and my dad and my uncle were talking about World Cup and how they're getting tickets and all that, and I'm sitting there going green with jealousy, thinking, well, it's okay for you, do I not get a look in with this one? And then that was on a Sunday, I think, and then I woke up Monday morning and I saw this envelope on the bedside table, so I just looked at, opened it, and inside were tickets, 5 World Cup tickets for the 3 group games, the quarter-final and the semi-final.
Is it a golden envelope? That sounds...
It's Willy Wonka.
Very unsuspecting that, just leave them on the side.
To this day, I'm eternally grateful to my dad for that type of thing. So I would still argue to this day that the better games in the World Cup, the better players in the World Cup, were all at Goodison Park. So for the initial games at Wembley, they were giving tickets away to get people to go inside the stadium, whereas here, all the games were sellouts. So the first game I saw was Brazil against Bulgaria. Pele scored in the streets end from a free kick. Goodison scored a goal in the second half. Fantastic. And I just remember looking round all the Brazil supporters because they all wore the football shirts. Now, we didn't do that in England at that time. So you saw these young, healthy Brazilians with the samba drums, with the shirts, all supporting the team. Most of them were in the Upper Gladys Street end as well. So there was the samba beat of the drum all the way through the match as well. So and
we know how it echoes around Goodison as well, made of wood.
And they made it echo even more as well. So that was a brilliant game. And then the second game I saw was Portugal against Brazil. Now, Pele had been really badly tackled in the first game. The referee gave no protection whatsoever. He was missing. So the second game was Brazil against Hungary. Pele was missing for that one because he'd been injured by some of the tackles from Bulgaria. And Hungary weren't actually fancy to do anything. People just assume Brazil win this to qualify for the group stage. Got into the stadium. After 3 minutes, Bene opens the scoring for Hungary. They're playing some superb football. They have a centre-forward called Florian Albert, who the crowd absolutely fall in love with. Hungary scored a stunning volley by Farkas, I think it was, and sealed the game with 3-1. At the end of the match, all you can hear is everyone in the streets and chanting, Albert, Albert, Albert. And he'd actually gone off the pitch by this stage, and I'm sure somebody from the Hungary team said, mate, they're chanting your name out there, get back out there. So he came back out in front of the Gladys Street and just stood there taking all the applause. Absolutely fantastic occasion for him, and fantastic memory for us. And then it set things up nicely for the group decider, which was Brazil against Portugal. Portugal just needed to draw to go through. Brazil needed to win. Now you got Brazil against the old colonial masters, Portugal, but even more fascinating was the fact it was Eusebio, who was being touted as the new Pele, against Pele, the original version, meeting in the World Cup. They'd met at club level, but never at an international game before. Yeah, so this is bringing together Eusebio, who's being touted as the new Pele, against the original version of Pele for Brazil. So it had everything set up to be basically a battle to kind of establish who was the world's best player. Now, sadly, Portugal just hacked Pele from the first minute of the game. If you look at some of the challenges he suffered on YouTube, it makes you cringe. And so effectively, he couldn't compete. He became a passenger. So that left the stage open for Eusebio. Eusebio scored 2 superb goals, 2 cracking volleys. Portugal won the game 3-1, and it was just a fantastic display from Eusebio, who kind of made his case of being the world's best footballer, and was still incredibly young. He's about 21, 22 at the time as well, as was Pele. There wasn't much difference between them in terms of age. So at the end of the match, I do remember coming out, and Gladys Street was full of Brazilian fans just sat on the floor, crying, tears in their eyes, inconsolable.
Because they would have been favourites as well.
They would have been favourites, yeah. I mean, they hadn't lost a World Cup game since 1954. So it was their first defeat in a World Cup competition.
It's unbelievable.
In 8 years, 12 years. 12 years, so yeah. Wow. So they were really downcast. Yeah. They'd really fancied their chances. So we went over.
Had to go out in the group.
Yeah.
You'd be gutted.
And in a mixture of kind of hesitant Scouse with a few words of Portuguese, so then we tried to console them, communicate with them. A few sort of giving their shirts away to people. Anyone who's still got one of those shirts, I'm so jealous of you.
Yeah.
If you've
got one,
if you've
get
got
in
one,
touch.
bring it here.
Bring it in. Yeah.
You gave the scarves away, and so that, you just really felt the pain, and you kind of felt cheated because Brazil would have played the quarter-final at Goodison Park, so we missed out on Pele, but we had Eusebio.
Now, just before we move on to the quarter-final, I just want to make a point to the public here. When you're doing your research, don't believe AI, because I knew that Pele had missed one of these games. Right, so I gave it a quick Google last night. Which game was it that he missed? And I will quote the AI response. He took a knock in the Portugal game and had to play the remainder of the game on crutches. Let that be a lesson to you. He did actually come on for the second, towards the end of the second half, but he just hobbled on the left wing. He couldn't do anything. It was just a pitiful sight. Yeah, as you say, Lewis, AI has its uses, but in terms of football, I think you're always best at beating somebody who's actually there and saw what happened. Yeah. So the quarter-final.
So quarter-finals, everyone thought it would have been Portugal against Italy, because Italy were favourites to come through their group as runners-up. But Italy had somehow lost to North Korea 1-0 in their final group game, which meant that North Korea were now playing Portugal in the quarter-final. So instead of Brazil-Italy, we got Portugal-North Korea. Now, North Korea hadn't planned on getting this far in the competition. And bearing in mind, at the time, we didn't have diplomatic relations with North Korea. One thing about the 1966 World Cup is the only time national anthems were played was in the opening game and in the final. They weren't playing any other match, and that was because we hadn't recognised North Korea as a state. Therefore, we wouldn't allow their anthems to be played in any games.
Wow.
So North Korea panicking, where are they going to stay? So they end up staying where Italy had already booked their accommodation, which was a seminary in Prescott, which was full of all these religious artefacts. Now, of course, when you come from an atheist country where there's no religion, so when the players went to their rooms and they saw these crucifixes and pictures of the Virgin Mary, they were absolutely terrified. Apparently, they couldn't sleep at night time. They just didn't know what the hell was going on because they'd never been introduced to that level of religious sort of items in their lives previously. And they were the rank outsiders. No one gave them a chance. So I remember we got to the ground just on 3 o'clock. I think there were about 52,000 there. And after 3 minutes, North Korea go 1-0 up in the street end. And I remember people coming up saying, "Hey lad, what's the score?" So Korea winning 1-0. Nah, go away, what's the score? No, honestly, they're winning 1-0. Then on about 15 minutes, North Korea go 2-0 up. And by this time, the crowd suddenly really gets behind the Koreans because, in terms of physique,
of course, they're the ultimate underdog.
The ultimate rank outsiders, Lewis. Yeah. And if you look at any clips of the game, physically, they're so small in stature compared to the Portuguese. They're so slender in build compared to the Portuguese. But they were buzzing around all over the place. Portugal were completely unprepared for this barrage of North Korean attacks. So that says the crowds, all you hear is Korea, Korea, Korea. Followed by we
Even from
want
the
three.
English.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like every person of Oriental heritage of Merseyside had come to the game. And also as well, North Korea had built up a cult support in their games in the Northeast. So the Northeast supporters came down to back them as well at Goodison Park. So they were quite well supporters. And then when the crowd were chanting, we won 3, they go and get a third goal. So it's 24 minutes gone. North Korea are beating Portugal 3-0. And it's not even on the TV because all the quarter-finals kick off at the same time. So all the people do the grounds are looking at the scoreboard, seeing North Korea 3, Portugal 0, wondering what the hell is going on at Goodison Park.
Yeah.
So in the modern game now, North Korea kill the game, they wind the clock down, they defend, they sit back. But no, they go for the 4th goal. And this starts to prove to be their undoing because eventually Portugal wake up. They cannot cope with Eusebio's pace and strength. So Eusebio bears through, gets them back to 3-1, gets a penalty, gets it back to 3-2. So half-time, the game is balanced at 3-2. And you're thinking, if Korea can get a 4th goal here, then maybe it's on again. Second half, Eusebio just overpowers North Korea. He gets another 2 goals. They end up winning the game 5-3, 4 goals to Eusebio. And I can still say to this day, it's up there amongst the top 2 or 3 games of football I've ever seen in my life.
I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. I'd say it's one of the top 2 or 3 games of football anywhere in the world at any time. It's a sensational result, isn't it?
I actually wouldn't disagree with that, Lewis. Yeah,
Eusebio got the 4 goals, as you say, but I believe he won the penalty as well.
Yeah,
so 4 goals and
he won both penalties.
Well, there you go.
It really was a one-man show from Eusebio, and he just looked the part, the build, the pace. He could head the ball, he could shoot the ball. He was just... He had it all that time. He really did. So, yeah, fantastic. Without Eusebio, North Korea win the game.
Yeah.
He's if you're looking for a guy who single-handedly keeps your team in the World Cup, Eusebio's the man.
So great footage of that day as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean, as you say, it wasn't on television at the time, but of course it was recorded, and I always love that the shot of him celebrating one of the goals, and he's running off, and you can see the lattice, the Archibald Leach lattice work in the background, and it's such an iconic Goodison moment of one of the greatest players ever celebrating like that at Goodison. I love that stuff.
If you see Portugal's 5th goal as well, I mentioned about the difference in physique. It was a header scored by Torres, who was about 6'4". He was literally a foot taller than every Korean defender who was trying to stop him winning the header. It's absolutely bizarre.
And of course, they then go on to the semi-final, which was controversially taken to Wembley.
So what happened was, when the schedules are first being published, it indicated England would play the semi-final at Goodison Park. So we all kind of thought that, great, we're going to see England play Portugal here at Goodison Park.
And you've got your ticket.
You got your ticket. England had played at Goodison earlier in the season. It's January against Poland, I think it was, beat them 1-0. So I was looking forward to England playing at Goodison Park. And then the FA panic and think, well, we're going to have Wembley Stadium for West Germany against the USSR. It's not going to sell out. We're going to have empty spaces on the terraces. It's going to be a bad look for the competition. Yeah. Whereas if England play Portugal at Wembley, it's going to sell out, and that's what we want. So they made a decision to swiftly change the semi-final from being played at Goodison Park to being played at Wembley. So
must have been gutted.
Well, there really was a lot of bad feeling about that. There really was at the time. There were protests before the game. You can see some footage as well. There's banners protesting about the decision as well. And some would argue that kind of a dislike of England as an international team kind of might have started from that day, because the fans here, both Liverpool and Everton fans, because don't forget both sets of fans would have been at Goodison for the World Cup, just really felt cheated out of the chance of watching England play a World Cup semi-final at Goodison Park. So instead we got West Germany against the USSR. Now, bear in mind, Liverpool being the second most bombed city in World War II. So there wasn't a great deal of love for West Germany in Liverpool, even in the 1960s.
No doubt, yeah. It's causing living memory.
Well, I mean, as a kid, and if you're saying for your father growing up, there were bomb sites all around Liverpool. like my grandfather being a prisoner of war in Germany, and his younger brother bought a Volkswagen car in the 1960s. He never spoke to him again because he bought a German car. So feelings
runs deep.
Feelings ran deep among certain members of the population. So I think the attendance was like low 30,000s, whereas if England played there, it would be in the 50,000 plus. And compared to the feast of football we'd had in the previous games, it was just an awful game. West Germany won 2-1. Lev Yashin probably had his worst game as USSR goalkeeper he had in his history. Let in a shot from 25 yards that he should have let in. Beckenbauer, it was indeed, who had a superb World Cup. So West Germany went 2-1 up. Russian player got sent off, which is no surprise because 5 players got sent off in the 6 World Cup. 4 played against West Germany. No, that's not chance, is it? And then with 5 minutes to go, USSR got a goal back, and there was lots of support for the USSR. Liverpool, Socialist City, loads of supporters there getting behind the team, but they just couldn't get it back to 2-1 with 10 men. And at the end of the game, West Germans did a lap of honour. And the tolerance of abuse they were met with by the home supporters was absolutely incredible. I was hearing words I'd never heard before in my life. And then that was it. The World Cup's over. And here I am as a 10-year-old thinking, great, I can't wait for the next World Cup to come back to England.
Yeah.
And here I am now. And still no sign of a World Cup coming here in my lifetime.
Well, I tell you what, if it ever does come back, it may not come back to Goodison, but I feel like we're in with a good shout.
Absolutely.
With this place behind me, you know. Yeah. Of course, it's going to be in the Euros, isn't it?
It is.
In a couple of years.
It is.
Just thought about that. That's good, isn't it?
Yep.
And you see the World Cup was over. We did go on and win the final.
We did.
We're not at Goodison, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. But I think we lost something by England not playing that semi-final at Goodison Park. And if you watch, there's a film about the 1966 World Cup called Goal. I don't know if you've ever seen it. And the whole first 20 minutes is all about swinging London, what a fantastic place it is, how the city's got behind the team. And you're there thinking, why is it swinging London? Because that only happens because the Beatles, where the Beatles were, they're from Liverpool. And then it goes from this scene of all these dolly birds and Carnaby streets to Liverpool, and the comedy goes like the grim back terrace streets of Liverpool, and it's so disrespectful to the World Cup and to the city at Liverpool, because all the best games, all the best players were at Goodison Park,
and all the best atmospheres by the sound of it,
and the best atmosphere. Well, don't forget, I mean, Wembley had a Greyhound pitch around it, a Greyhound track. One of the games at Wembley had to be moved to the White City because a Greyhound meeting had been booked in the World Cup, so they moved it to the White City instead. Incredible.
That's amazing. Fantastic stories, those, mate. Honestly, I wish I felt like I was there for a minute. Like of all the tales that I've heard, it's nice to hear it from someone who was actually there and witnessing the games. It's one thing to watch it on the clips on YouTube and things, which I'll throw into the video as well to embellish your stuff.
What I would say to anyone listening, if you've got older relatives who attended the Sixers World Cup at Goodison, speak to them about it, because I think one of the big regrets in my life is that I never really spoke to my grandfather about matches he went to in the 20s and 30s while he was still alive. So I think the oral tradition of football supporters really needs to be commemorated, and things like this are brilliant because you're giving the Heritage Society members the chance to share their memories about experiences they've had that other people might not necessarily get the chance to experience themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of what we're doing here, I've always thought that you know, yourself and so many of the journalists around Everton write such great stories and put them into books and into articles, and they're online and they're so valuable, but there's not so much like video work out there. There's not so much you can, in this new era of technology. I want to find us a wider audience and particularly a younger audience as well. And I want younger people to be able to hear these stories and people who don't have, older generations in their family perhaps who were there. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's why it's good, Lewis. You're inviting people in to do this. You got the questions ready. You give them the chance to develop the stories, to enhance on their memories and kind of bring it alive, which, because we're so used to a multimedia generation, sometimes the power of speech needs to be brought back to the front where people share their reminiscences about games they've been to.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I won't take all the credit. There's people behind it all, and the work goes in. But speaking of stories from the past, I hope you don't mind. I just want to take a couple of minutes to read a little story. We often talk about the programme articles in each match week, programme that are written by Heritage Society members. Now this week's was written by Paul Owens about the Glovesmen of Goodison.
Fantastic book, by the way.
Fantastic book, absolutely. It's on the shelf behind me, and of course that's not the story I'm going to read this week, because Paul was on the last show and we did a full hour with Alan Kelly as well, Jordan Pickford's goalkeeper coach, and did the full hour on his book, and it's brilliant. So make sure you go and watch that one. Well worth your time. So considering that, I'd like to go all the way back to the very beginning of Everton, and a man called to set it up a little bit more properly, the connections between today's opponents, Tottenham Hotspur, all the way back at the beginning. So there was a gentleman called Frank Brettel. Now he was a full-time reporter for the Liverpool Mercury, and he also played as a full-back and in various positions for St Domingos as something of a player, secretary, manager. And he was part of the committee at the Queen's Head in 1879 when that team famously became Everton. Brettel then later went on to become the manager of Tottenham Hotspur in 1898, where he then signed a star Everton forward named John Cameron. And Cameron had become involved in the movement towards unionisation of footballers in defiance of both league directives and club proposals, which resulted in the power of players to seek higher earnings. As he did this as the league were not willing to negotiate on this point. So Cameron broke the contract with Everton and he went to play for Brettel's Tottenham Hotspur, who were then in the Southern Football League, directly because that league did not support the proposal to limit earnings. And he did this despite being one of the highest earning players of his day at Everton. So Cameron then in turn replaced Brettel as player manager of Tottenham Hotspur when he left in 1899. And Cameron became a really significant name in Tottenham's history, as he was the man that led them to winning the 1901 FA Cup, which was the first and still only non-league team to lift the FA Cup. And he himself scored 2 goals in the replay of a 2-2 final against Sheffield United.
Now this is an historical piece of film in 2 ways. It's the first existing film of a major football match, and it's a factual glimpse of our people actually as they were, not realising they were being filmed. Tottenham Hotspur draw 2-2 with Sheffield United before they beat them in the replay at Everton Park to become the only non-league club ever to win the cup since the league began.
He scored the 2 goals in the replay, which they won 3-1. Now Cameron's story doesn't end there, as he went on to manage a German club, Dresdner, and then when war broke out in 1914, he became a prisoner of war at Royden camp in Spandau, and this camp held around 5,000 prisoners, and football became a popular entertainment there. John Cameron was prominent in organising and playing football within the camp, and was named the secretary of the Royden FA. And on the 2nd of May 1915, a World 11 played a match against an England 11, captained by Cameron, who was playing alongside one of his Everton teammates, Samuel Wolstenholme, who was also a prisoner of at the camp, having also taken a coaching role in Germany. For those spectating, sometimes up to 1,000 people, such games would have had welcome. I'll say that again. For those spectating, sometimes up to 1,000 people, such games would have been a welcome relief from the obviously appalling conditions in the camp. And the added attraction of watching former internationals must have lifted camp spirits enormously. For most of the men, their captivity would last 4 long years there before their repatriation in 1918. But among the footballing prisoners in that England 11 were 2 more former Everton men. Jack Brearley, our top scorer in the 1902-1903 season, who then signed for Cameron Spurs, and also Walter Watty Campbell, who was the star of Everton's championship-winning 1891 side, the first title won at Anfield. And he poignantly recalled his experience in Royden camp, declaring, "The game helped break the monotony of the camp life and carried away thoughts of home for a while. the football kept us alive.
Oh, fantastic story, Lewis. I mean, that type of thing this show does really well, to unearth an article like that. I mean, can't imagine being in prisoner of war where there's professional footballers there in the camp with you, organising games, training you, coaching you. Well, you got the horror of the First World War going on in the background. Fantastic story.
It's staggering, isn't it? I put that together. I mean, it's not my words. The 2 articles on these men by my dad, Mike Royden, and Tony Onslow as well. All of the programme articles we've ever done can be found on our website, efcheritagosociety.com. And those 2 particular articles focused on the players independently. And it wasn't till I kind of read both of them that I was like, hold on a minute, these guys are in the same place at the same time. I thought it was absolutely sensational. Right, now, how's this for a segue? Players to play for both Everton and Tottenham. After Alex Sandy Young, who moved from Everton to Spurs in 1911, amazingly, and I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I now can't find any more shared players for 77 years until Bobby Mims made the same move to Spurs in 1988, having just won the 1987 Charity Shield in goal for the Blues, having just lifted our last league title at Goodison Park. Yep. So what's your book about, Paul?
Funny enough, Lewis, it's about the 1987 Everton title winning team. The book is called The Forgotten Champions, and I gave it that title because I always kind of felt the 1987 team, which is the last Everton team to win the league title at Goodison Park, kind of gets totally bypassed in favour of the 84-85 team, and I understand why. Understandably, the 84-85 team gets all the kudos, but I actually think the 86-87 team is certainly comparable with the 84-85 team. But I'd also say, in terms of the injuries they had to deal with to get themselves in contention for the title, in terms of the loss of key players they missed during the course of the season, I still think that's Howard Kendall's best achievement as a manager, was winning that league title in 86-87, because at the start of the season it just seemed like everything was against us, and you just couldn't see a way that Everton were going to come back and challenge for the title. Because
I mean, of course, we just of course, you mentioned the 85 season, which so many people do look back on, and even I say people like myself who weren't there at the time. It really is part of the club's rhetoric, isn't it? We're constantly looking back at the 85 side, which of course is probably our greatest ever team. But then, of course, the year later, we could have gone and won a double.
Absolutely.
We just missed out on the league. Annoyingly beaten to it by the Reds. And the FA Cup final as well. Annoyingly beaten by the Reds when we were probably the better team in 86. So, as you say, for them to come back from 86 and bounce back and win it the way they did, the book really, it's fantastic. It's the way it highlights a lot of the way the team was put together as well, because we lost a lot of players, didn't we?
We did,
It was an ageing team.
I mean, you can't underestimate how demoralised Everton fans were. I mean, can you imagine losing the league title and the FA Cup final to your most bitter opponents, and then you've got to survive the summer while they're celebrating the double, and you should have won that double. You missed the chance of winning the first double since 1971. So it was just so frustrating. And then your star striker, Gary Lineker, goes to Barcelona. There's all sorts of rumours that Howard Kendall's on his way to Barcelona as well. And so Everton fans are just, what the hell is going on here?
Kendall claimed to have signed the contract, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, if
Barcelona, that is.
If you read Kendall's 2 autobiographies, he says he met the reps from Barcelona. I think it was the Connells Hotel in London. He signed the deal and was convinced the job was his. What he hadn't counted on was the fact that Barcelona would routinely offer the same job to 4 people at the same time. So whilst he'd signed that job, other people had also thought they'd got the job as well. And Terry Venables was getting told 1 minute he was being sacked, and then the next minute he was being kept on. So that was just the way they did business. So I think Kendall, understandably, hadn't quite understood the intricacies of how Barcelona conducted their business. So,
but thankfully he stayed.
And I think he himself looks at that 86-87 season as his biggest challenge, because there was a feeling amongst Everton fans that maybe 84-85 was a one-off. It would be like 1970. And the other parallel was we had 4-5 players in the 86 World Cup. In 1970 we had about 4 or 5 players in the 70 World Cup team, and it impacted the following season. So optimism was not high amongst Blues to start the season. Probably the best signing Howard Kendall made that summer was convincing Adrian Heath to stay.
Yeah.
And then deciding that to go back to the playing system of 84-85 to use the strengths of Sharp and Heath, because the Sharp-Heath partnership had worked really well for the first half of 84-85.
I'm really glad you've brought that up, because that was one of the focal points that I wanted to highlight. Admittedly, before we go super in depth on this, I do want to highlight, we've done this already, haven't we? But you sat down with Rob Sawyer last year, and there's a film on, another one to look up on the Everton Heritage Society YouTube page. I'll put the link in the description and stuff so you can go and find it. Over an hour, where we go through the whole book, you dissect the entire team, and I don't want to praise it too much because I made it, but I've gone back and watched it again a couple of times. I put loads of the footage in there, so it's all the goals from the season, and that brings me on to, I mean, the goals that season, they were phenomenal. Massive wins, as you say, Sharp and Heath, just sensational.
Yeah, you look back 86-87 as well. I mean, some of the goals Sheedy scored that season, I'd still argue with anybody that 86-87 was Kevin Sheedy's best ever campaign in Everton shirt, playing in centre mid. And one of the frustrating things for me was, if you read Kevin Sheedy's autobiography, he hardly mentions it 86-87 apart from the free kick goal against Liverpool. Yeah. It just hardly, it gets no attention at all.
But that free kick is worth a mention as well, isn't it? Iconic.
Iconic free kick as well. And then giving the V signs to the cop after he scored the goal, and then
living the dream.
I think him and Agent Heath both gave V signs to the cop as well. and as it transpired, the match referee took no action about that, and it was only when someone had seen the highlights on TV and complained to the FA about it that the FA showed an interest in it, and then Sheedy and Heath were both summoned to appear in front of the disciplinary committee. And I remember Sheedy saying when he got there, he looked at the committee members. There's probably nobody there under the age of 85, and he thought, right, this is going to be, I can get away with this. Yeah. So he just told them, no, he wasn't giving Liverpool fans the V-sign. He was just telling them the score 1-1, and somehow they believed it. So him and Agent Heath just got away with it. I mean, these days with social media, you never survive that. But even though we lost that game, it was just a brilliant moment. And what was even best was the fact we lost at Anfield didn't matter, because the league was ours anyway. Yeah. So, you know, we're going to win it regardless of the outcome of that game.
Just delaying the inevitable.
And, you know, we won that title by 9 points that season. We absolutely romped home with it. And this is with a team that features likes of, you know, Kevin Langley, Neil Adams, not names that most Everton fans are familiar with. Paul Power. I mean, Paul Power, if you want an example of Howard Kendall's expertise in the transfer market, Paul Power is your classic case, because he was 33, he was being a lifelong player at Manchester City, was considered to be past his best, and Howard Kendall knew he had a problem on the left side of the team, with Van den Hal being injured at left back, with Kevin Sheedy, he wanted to play him in the middle of the park rather on the left side. And for him, he saw Paul Power, checked his fitness record, checked his appearance record, and thought, this guy is exactly what I want. He got crucified by Everton fans for buying Paul Power. Even the Everton players themselves were, has he just come for the last payday? Apparently, on his first training session, at the end of it, Kevin Ratcliffe looked at him and thought, Christ, this guy's the fittest player of any of us. And he's about 10 years older than anyone. Yeah. So they were mega impressed with him. He played 41 games out of 42 that season. He was voted Player of the Year by the fans as well. So he was an absolutely fantastic signing. And he's somebody else who, when ex-Everton players get paraded to talks and speeches, he's never there. Yeah. And his contribution to 86-87 is outstanding. And the other thing Power brought to that dressing room was he'd been captain at Manchester City. So you had Paul Power, who'd been captain at Manchester City, Dave Watson, who'd been captain at Norwich City, Ian Snowden, who'd been captain at Leeds United, and Kevin Ratcliffe, who'd been the team captain. So in that dressing room, you had 4 experienced captains who could all bring their experience and a winning mentality to the team.
And that helped us play, arguably, again, before my time, but arguably some of the best football that Everton have ever played.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at some of the clips of games over the Christmas 86, Easter 87, you will see some of the best football, the best goals you'll ever see Everton. I remember Paul Power saying, and bear in mind, Paul Power had been playing top level football for 15 years when he signed for Everton. when we won away at Newcastle United 4-0 on Boxing Day, Paul Power said afterwards, that's the best game of football I've ever been involved in. He was absolutely wowed by how good that Everton team were on that day. And if you want to have a look, I argue to this day that Wayne Clark's debut goal for Everton away against Arsenal, when he chips the ball from 40 yards into the back of the net, is the best debut goal I've ever seen by an Everton player. And that goal turned the tide in our favour in the title chase that season.
That was
and
a 1-0 win, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Wayne Clark is another one who people don't talk about anymore. But his 6 goals towards the end of that campaign helped us get over and win the title.
Yeah, absolutely. And hence the title of the book, as you say, these forgotten champions. It almost seems, in a way, no disrespect, but it almost seems disingenuous to be like, oh, these lads have been forgotten. But you make a really good point, because these are names that are not on the tips of the tongue of youngsters when you sing about your history on the terraces and things. And you know, when you go through the songs, their names aren't. They're not the names who come up, and yet they were the last, not only the last title winners for Everton, but the last ever title winners at Goodison Park.
Absolutely.
So we wrapped up the title, let's see if I remember this. I know that we lifted the trophy against Luton, didn't we, on the last, but it wasn't the last day of the season. We'd won it at Norwich.
Won it at Norwich on the May Day bank holiday, which was also the same date we won the 85 title on as well, May Day bank holiday. 1-0 away at Norwich, and Pat Vanden Hauwe, one of his few appearances that season, scores the opening goal after 45 seconds. And then, I mean, that was a really tough game, because Norwich were aiming for their highest ever place in the league. Their fans have been quite annoyed that we'd taken Dave Watson off them, so there's a lot of edge to that game as well. But we hung on, won the game, and then at the end of the match, no Everton fan was going to leave the stage. Everton stayed behind, singing, chanting, and the Norwich police were trying to get people to move, and no one would move. And I think Howard Kendall says, look, they will only move that the players come back out on the pitch. You've got to let the players come back out onto the pitch. So all the players came back out onto the pitch, celebrating starters. And then if you read the book as well, you will see about the legendary team coach journey home from Norwich back to Liverpool, with Terry Darracott being the host DJ for
Champion Radio, he called it.
Champion Radio, And then on the journey back home, every time they came across Everton supporting cars, they slowed the coach down so everyone could wave at them and join the party.
It's brilliant.
And Ian Snowden made the mistake of falling asleep, and then woke up to find his suit being cut to pieces. So when he got off the coach to meet his wife, he was only wearing a suit down by his shoes and a pair of boxers. Well, I hope he's wearing a pair of boxers, don't see no.
I'm a little bit conscious of time here, Paul. We've got a game to get to, and so I think if we just round this off, you mentioned the title winning goal was Pat Vanden Hauwe. We ended the season at home to Tottenham Hotspur, today's opponents. Vanden Hauwe then moved to Spurs, didn't he? So I'm going to ask you a question, and I haven't prepped you for this. And Kieran, if you want to try and chime in here as well, you're welcome to. Can you name the Premier League players to have played for both Everton and Tottenham Hotspur? There is one who has only played one game for Everton. I'm going to say this to the public as well. See if they can get it by the end of the game. How many can you name?
Is the guy who played one game the goalkeeper Bardson, is it?
Yes, it is. That's unbelievable. That's the one I thought we wouldn't get. I underestimated you there, but I can't lie.
Yeah, I mean, strangely, there's not that many players who play for both teams. I mean, you got the obvious ones, obviously Stephen Pienaar, Nick Barmby, David Ginola, Richard Goff, Dele Alli, Simon Davis, Bobby Mims, Pat Vanden Hauwe you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Gaza, Gary Lineker.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, Lineker was pre-Premier League.
Yeah.
You'd have extra points for pre-Premier League on this, because as I said before, if I've got a gap of 77 years where I couldn't find any, I might be wrong. A couple of the obscure ones aren't Danjuma. Of course, Richarlison's coming back today. Gylfi Sigurdsson, people forget about him. And Andros Townsend. Louis Sahar.
Yeah. Aaron
Lennon. There you go. There are quite a few. So I am going to put that question to people in the intro. We've just given you most of the answers there, I think. I'll have to go through and check. So I think we'll round it off there.
Thanks,
and
Lewis.
you can get off to the game with your family.
Thanks so much,
thank
Lewis.
you so much for coming in. I really appreciate the conversation.
Lewis, It's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show with you. I've looked forward to being on the show for quite a few weeks now. I was delighted when the invitation came through. Thanks for all the preparation. Thanks for the questions you put forward to give me a chance to talk and waffle on probably a little bit too much, but enjoyed the whole experience. The match is going to struggle to live up to the experience of being interviewed by you today, but fingers crossed. And thanks to Kieran there in the background doing all the tech work, without which this wouldn't survive. And I just recommend anyone who's not seen the previous recordings that have been done by Lewis, check them out at the Heritage Society, because there's a wealth of Evertonia there, which I'm sure you'll love from start to finish. But once again, Lewis, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, mate. What a brilliant little, what a brilliant advert. Cheers, and now you can sign my book. Thanks, pal. Thanks for joining us, everyone, for another episode of the Everton Heritage Show, and thanks to Paul for coming in. I always love hearing his stories, and I could talk to him all day. I think you could tell there we could have carried on. That pretty much an hour just flew by there. You can get his book at all good bookstores. It's well worth a read. Obviously, Paul, with the written word as well as orally, he's a great storyteller, so well worth checking out. Apologies for my voice. I'm recording this after the match where we've just lost 3-0 at home to Spurs. Everton's first defeat at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. And I've wasted my voice on Craig Pawson. There you go again. Excuse me. The pictures behind me, over both of my shoulders actually, are by Sarah DeBow of at Mint Is Culture. You may follow them already on social media. And she's given me a few, so hopefully I'll get a few more of her pictures up. Thanks very much to her. Make sure you go and give us a follow and a subscribe. Click all the buttons, thumbs up, all that kind of thing. But importantly, give us your comments. I want to have a chat to you. I want to know your stories as well. Were you at the World Cup? Are you one of those people who was around in the 60s? And if you weren't one of those around in the 60s, let us know what you thought of Paul's stories. And I don't know, maybe family members of your own have got stories to share. And yeah, looking forward to our next episode, which may be Fulham, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which is the Remembrance game. So we'll have some stories of our fallen soldiers. So until next time, thanks very much.
Heritage.